Hello. It's got to that stage of the year where I'm too hot, and we're only in April. I think the radiator might be on, and I'm not going under the desk now to try and fiddle around with the doojummy flip. It's not professional, is it? No, we will crack on instead with a slightly overheated agenda of all of the great things that are happening in Consonance this week. So let's go. Now I'm being a bit cheeky today because what we're going to go through today is the exact agenda for my next meeting with an exciting potential new client who has raised some of the queries and questions that we'll find ourselves going through. So forgive me for, making you sit through my preparation for a meeting. Bit much, isn't it? But no, hopefully this will be very interesting because, straight from the horse's mouth, isn't it? So let me click the correct buttons. Let's go and see what we are going to be looking at. So it's the same agenda, as in the same overall topics and themes that we're covering as usual today. We'll look at, upgrade thing. We'll look at change. We'll look at achieving reach, developing our expertise, really understanding our data and processes in depth, and doing it all at a cracking pace. Because no matter what system you have, I have found, the work doesn't lessen, but you can get faster at it. It's some sort of thing about capitalism, I suppose, isn't it? That work will always expand to fit the time available, but at least you can be doing good, fruitful work and not stupid, pointless work. That's my big plan. Right, so the first thing, in terms of change, is such a great question. How do you change to consonance? And it strikes me that I stand here every week waving my arms around, and we talk about features in the system, but I quite rarely actually talk about the process of moving to consonance. I talk about what you do once you're here and once all of your data is in the system and once you're motoring and how to get the most out of it. And I don't really want to step through a full client implementation on YouTube because the whole point of it is that it's tailored to each individual client and therefore makes it very private. If there's a burning demand for it, which there may be, you'll have to let me know, then I could set up some dummy data and we could actually do what I'm about to describe to you. So don't hesitate to ask, but it would be a lot of work, and as we've already established, I'm a terribly lazy person. So I thought I'd just narrate what we do, and then that gives you an insight, and then you can ask further questions. I suppose the first thing to say is that we don't charge any money until all of your data is in the system and you're happy with it. So from that point of view, it's quite a risk-free enterprise with no obligation, no contract signed or anything, until such time as all of the realities of the idiosyncrasies of your particular use case have had a chance to come out. I mean, I say cost-free. Time is that most fungible of resources, isn't it? And I wouldn't want to take too much of your time, but what we do is we get data from you in the current existing format. So we don't say go away for 6 months and contort everything to suit our requirements. We say send us the data that you have at the moment, ideally in the Onyx XML format, but in spreadsheet if the whole point of moving to Consonance is that you don't have data in the Onyx format. And then what we do is we slurp it in, we import that data into a demo account on a test system. So all of our clients use a particular instance of our code. It's deployed onto the internet on a platform as a service, underpinned by, as everyone is, AWS and Salesforce and that sort of thing. But this is a separate standalone instance, which means we can build it up, knock it down, and nobody needs to get imposed upon at all in terms of either data or load on the system. So we create a new dummy account in that system, named for the potential new client. and we press a button or two to import the Onyx file that they've sent us, they've emailed to us, or for FTP to us, and we have code that scampers through that data and puts it into a Consonance account. So that takes a vanishingly small amount of time, under a day we're talking about, because that's code for you. It's an automated script. But what that does immediately is reveal all of the peculiarities. So within a few minutes, we can say, gosh, well, looks like you haven't got any ebooks in your data feed. Is that right? Is that wrong? What about audiobooks? And these sort of big shapes become immediately apparent. And this is the sort of information, the rich, personal, specific information that is necessary for a potential client to be able to make a reasonable choice about, well, should we move to Consonance? Is this going to provide additional value over what we've got at the moment? So at the very least, it's a fantastic audit of your existing situation when you realise that the Onyx file you've got from a distributor or from your existing system doesn't contain X, Y, and Z, or only you've only got a maximum of 6 contributors listed in there, or some other oddity. So some big shapes get revealed, and then we start the process of human conversation back and forth. Oh, how archaic! But we set up an account in a project management tool called Basecamp, which has nothing to do with us. It's just somebody else's software, but it's useful because we at Consonance can set up an account and invite a client to sort of individual project areas. So we see all of our clients, but each individual client only sees their one bit. And then we have a chat screen, and it's 50 chats back and forth a day saying, is it really true that, can it be that? And we figure out what the problems are, what the good things are, and we also try and provide some solutions. We might say, we notice that you've only got USD prices in the system. Are you not selling anywhere else? Do you want us to automatically generate all of the other currency prices when we import your data into Consonance based on some business rules? Do you want to set up Apple pricing? Because that might be a useful time. We notice that you've got every single sales right set to world. Is that true? And if not, we can amend that on the fly when we do it. So you've got the benefit. So far, this is free. You've got the benefit of an audit to see what your current data actually looks like, and we can fix it programmatically, which is a definite time saver, because anything that we can do programmatically means that you don't have to do it with your poor, exhausted fingers through a web interface. So that's all pretty good. And that sort of takes care of the big shapes, and that tends to get us to a position where you get this sense of, well, this is going in the right direction. We can see really good value here. We like using Consonance because, by this point, you can have invited all of your team to have a good poke around with their data in Consonance, even though it's, still work in progress. But there's nothing like seeing your actual data for you to be able to see, how processes work, how the reality of the Consonance experience is going to go for you. So that's really nice as well. And then if you sort of say at this point, well, yeah, this looks like a goer, carry on. Still no bill, hurrah. But at this point, we might start getting even more detailed, building up to a point where we're going to take your data and maybe the most recent version of your data, because, time will have passed by now. So you can export your data again from the original place. We'll take that. We'll have written all of these different scripts during our conversations based on what you want us to do with the data. Do you want to do a price transform? Do you want to do a sales right transform? Do you want to fix this repeating oddity of, you've said a particular turn of phrase and a keyword and you don't want that to be there anymore. So, all of these different things, we don't just sort of fix it in your test data. We write a script so that we can fix it in your test data and in future versions of that test data. And then once we're satisfied that we've gone through as much as we can, offered you as much value as we can in fixing your data, then we press the button for the last time and implement that and import that data to the real account on the real Consonance instance. Oh, there's a blue tit drinking water out of the gutter. That's extremely idyllic. Not relevant to Consonance, sorry. Yes, so that's super. But then at that point, or maybe even earlier, the really funny thing is we get to use the search functionality, Data Studio. We get to use that to dive ever further into the data, and I really love. I mean, it's probably a bit accidental. I wouldn't like to claim any amazing strategic foresight on this, but we get to use the search functionality that we built for our paying customers in order to provide insight into the data that has come from other people's systems, so that we can improve it. And then I think that's really, really amusing. So we will then set up a bunch of searches, and a lot of them are in the library of examples. And they might be things like, well, let's find all of the products or the works where the edition statement contains something like, we'd use our match regex thing. Those of you who've listened along will know. Find me all of the works where the edition type is something like US edition or French edition, because then we know that the previous system hasn't done a very good job of putting sales rights information into the right boxes. If it says US edition in the edition statement field, it should say sales rights US, sales rights excluded, rest of world, rather than saying, what the edition is. So that's like another layer down of subtlety. When it's an edition statement, it's not like it's wrong. It's not an invalid Onyx message, because that's a optional free text field. But it is wrong. It is the wrong way to communicate that information. And we have this sort of endlessly powerful device that we've written that allows us to inspect all of this data and to surface these oddities. So, right from before you're even a customer of Consonance, you're getting the value of the Data Studio, the search functionality. And then, once you're up and running, you can use it for your own insights and useful purposes. And then the other funny element is that we often use the search capabilities to answer support requests. If you come to us and say, is there any way I can possibly get all of my covers that I've uploaded since the year dot? Or is there any way that I can see any of the covers that have got a pixel resolution of less than blah, blah, blah? We can say, yes, we first of all log into the account, use the search functionality, see what the data is, and then share the definition of the search with the inquiring party. So it's all super, super helpful. So where have I got up to? I think from the point of view of the potential new customer, we've done a big shapes cut of the data. We've done a big refinement of the data. And then the next major milestone is in getting feeds set up. Now, that is because we're trying to get you onto a new system when you're still running your publishing operations every day, and you're trying to change the wheels whilst you're driving down the motorway. So as soon as possible, after we set up that final account, we don't want you entering data into two systems. I mean, that path is not a happy one to go down. So, we will keep your data in a kind of a test holding pattern until all of the feeds that you want setting up have been established, debugged, troubleshot, communicated to the receiving party, once you're sure that all of the credentials are correct, once you're sure that the pattern and the pace and the sequence of feeds is going out in the right fashion, then you can consider yourself officially using Consonance, and then you'll start paying for user licenses and for any implementation fee that we've agreed, which tends to top out at £2,500 Great British pounds for the entire implementation effort. So, you haven't paid anything to date. When you do pay for implementation, I think it's very reasonable. It's certainly cheaper than all of our competitors. And then it's at that point that you start paying for user licenses as well. So that's the rough process. You'll notice that I've only talked about metadata in terms of Onyx, and that is, a chunky muffin. It's where a lot of your important work will reside. But there's all sorts of other data that goes along with it, isn't there? There's your contact information, non-contributor contact information, because printers will not appear in an Onyx message because they're not a contributor to work or a product. Data aggregators, literary agents, all of the contact people and organisations who you need to store information for. We will get that from whatever sort of feed you have. It'll be a spreadsheet, won't it? Yes. So we will take your contact information. We do have plentiful importers that are sort of self-service within the Consonance interface, and very often we end up using our own importers that you can also use to import your data as a one-off. But we can also extend that, and regularly do extend that, as one-offs to smooth the path of your data will be in whatever format it's in, and then we will fiddle with it to get it into Consonance as a one-off, or maybe even on an ongoing basis. So there's contact information, there's workflow information, there's royalty information, sales history data, and so on and so forth. But I've deliberately not necessarily mentioned that because there's a right order to doing this stuff, and the right order is get your metadata and your feeds in first, and get your advanced information sheets and catalogues and tip sheets coming, and special Excel exports coming out of Consonance, and then everyone can relax because nothing has broken. The fundamental core operations have not been interrupted. Onyx is still going out to whoever. Your website feed is still working. You can still get your spreadsheets from your one version of the truth now. You've got even better tip sheets, because they will be. And it's all, and people can start to see that this is going to be less work, not more, and nothing's broken. So it's a softly, gently, no pain. It's always pain, isn't there? As little pain as possible approach to things. With lots of communication and lots of chances to keep trying until you're happy that the data is where you want it to be. So that's a real rough whistle-stop tour of how we onboard customers. That's like the standard, and if you imagine your standard deviation curve, there are much quicker implementations and there are much slower implementations, and that is usually relative to the ratios relative to the size of the onboarding customer and the age and the nature of the previous systems. This is why I can't just show you a model example, because everyone is different and everyone is the same. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? We all think that we're unique snowflakes, and there's always idiosyncrasies, but the big shapes are the same. I was on the phone the other day to someone who I could have said word for word as they were describing their situation, because it's a story we've heard again and again and again. It was really cool. So that's that. Let me know if you would like that story to be replayed, but with actual data. and I will go to the bother of setting up some example data to show you how we take an Onyx feed from another source, import it in a single blow, inspect it, fiddle with it, see how we can improve matters. Yeah, good stuff. That's my job. Our job. Actually, I do very little of that. It's all very well to breezily sort of describe it, where the team are hard at work actually doing that behind the scenes. Lovely. Great being the boss, isn't it? What's next on the list? Next on the list is reach, and you can't see that because it's my big face. There we go. Next on the list is reach, and we're going to be looking today at contributor records. So I thought I would mention this because sometimes a work has a single author, and that's all very good. But in the academic world, and the scholarly and professional world, and education actually, there tends to be more contributors, and they might be at chapter level, they might be at work level, they might be at sort of a bundled pack level. But I thought I'd just sort of scamper into them so that we can see what sort of things we're talking about, because they're a funny sort of record. They absolutely sit alongside works. You can't you can have work without a contributor, but usually somebody has contributed to the making of the work. But they're also their own individual records, aren't they? They're representations in a database of actual people or organisations. So they are a bit special. And I don't know if you were listening last week, but I showed you the ISNI registry, which is, if you think of like what ISBNs are to works, well, ISNIs are that to people. They are unique identifiers. And I think I showed you AA Milne. And it's so funny because when you say a unique identifier, you see the list of all of the different ways that people have referenced AA Milne, like A Milne, A.A. Milne, A.A. Milne, Milne, comma, A. That's the sort of nature of this sort of data. So yeah, let's just have a quick look, I guess, at some of the things that I'm talking about. Here I am on the Big Book of Cats. Oh, the Big Book of Big Cats. Very nice. Honestly, sometimes I do think that this nonsense feline press account that we've got set up is an absolute goer. Finally, we're going to get rich. Cat books. So here is a rather exaggerated section of contributors, and I expect that normally in your account you see like one or maybe two contributors here, but it's just quite fun, isn't it, to see what it might be if you had an absolutely vast Big Book of Cats and it had maybe 82 chapters and each of those chapters had 30 contributors. Then it can end up looking a bit like this, which is, I mean, it's fine, isn't it? Within Consonance, when you're trying to emit this information into something like a spreadsheet or an advanced information sheet or tip sheet, there's like truncated versions where you can say the first 3 contributors and then you can say et al. On the end or something like that. And that can be expressed in Onyx in a really neat and tidy fashion as well. So just because you have a bazillion records like this doesn't mean that all of your presentational layer has to have the bazillion records. You can selectively turn on and off the contribution at the product level. So this one here, for instance, Joyce Murphy, MD. By the way, all of these, this is definitely fake data. None of these people exist, as is the way of feline press. So Joyce Murphy, MD, has contributed to the AJ, the BB, the BC and the DG versions, products on this work. And if we want to change that, if we click on edit, then we can either make it so that they contribute to none, or let's say just the AJ and just the BC. So if I save that now, you can see that these have kind of been greyed out. and that indicates that they're not a contributor to that. Another thing I want to point out is that we're looking at this sort of squished view here, summary view. If you want to see all of the detail behind each individual contributor, then click on expanded view and you get to see, you don't have to remember that BC means paperback. You get to see everything there, and you get to have some links to go through to the contact record in the rest of the system. You also get to see territories if that's relevant. But one of the real benefits of the expanded of the summary view is that you get to drag around the page without being driven mad, because each dragging area is absolutely vast. So yeah, you can, and as we know, sequence order when it comes to contributors is an important part of your metadata. Now, I've sort of alluded very obliquely in that little chat about onboarding other people's data. Hopefully I wasn't too rude, although I'm about to get ruder. When we get data from other people's systems, we often blink quite hard at some of the quality of it, and sometimes there is a limit on the number of contributors that you can store in systems or you can send to receiving systems. We've heard that sometimes you can only send 6, and we also know that the sequence in which they're sent will result in that's the sequence that this data will be presented on other people's websites. Now, that's not a bad thing. That's great. It's important to have a mechanism to be able to say, in a list where we're describing the contributors to a work, this entity comes first, and then this entity, and then this entity. So that's how you would do that on the metadata page here. Make sure that what you see on the page is the order that you want them to appear in. I mean, I think with a lot of this stuff, you just have to think, what do I want it to look like on Amazon? Or, retailer of your choice, but it's going to be Amazon, isn't it? And if it's bad news, sort of politically within the organisation, for Brook Hall to be number 1 in the list, then this is the page to change that on for a quiet life. So I thought I would just show you contributions there. And one of the reasons that I'm talking about this as well is because the next bit on our agenda, if I find my PowerPointo, is to do with work derivations. And this is also linked to speed, because when you have a large number of contributions like this, as I say, it can often be because you're working with products that compile together, in fact works that compile together to form another work. And I really like this feature in Consonance because it means that you get the value of putting all of these contributors in without the penalty of having to repeat yourself for derived works. We have looked at this before, and I don't think today I'm going to actually step through setting this up, but I've just typed derive in the filter at the top of this page so that we can see the derivation section. Because this work, the Big Book of Big Cats, has these two original works. So the Big Book of Big Cats is a compilation of the 2 works, Cats in Space and Cats Throughout History. And the information that we put in for Cats in Space and Cats Throughout History can be pulled through automatically so that we don't have to repeat ourselves in the Big Book of Big Cats. This is now just one long stream of me saying the word cat every now and again, interspersed with other words that probably make no sense. But in the moment, when you are faced with having to compile work A and work B into work C, and you're holding your head because you don't want to have to type in the 69 contributors, the good news is you don't have to. Everything is related in your one version of the truth. And here we are seeing that Cats in Space and Cats Throughout History, which remain their own discrete, sellable products of a work, have been made the original works of this derived work. as I say, it's the sort of thing that when you've got an actual problem in your head, it seems like a very clear solution. What I also like about this sort of thing is that when you know that you can do that, and you know that you're not going to have to find an extra bazillion hours in the year to maintain it all, I do think it frees you up to consider that sort of publishing as a strategy, because what we're talking about there is remixing. We're talking about making the most of our intellectual property. If you have a chapter about, I'm going to say leopards, you might want to include that chapter as an original work in a derived work about big cats. You might also want to use that chapter in a big book about interesting patterns. You might also want to use that in an interesting book about the savannah and animals that live in it. Do you know what I mean? You get to publish individual works that could be compiled into different works based on their subject matter, based on any other dimension that you're interested in. And I think just knowing that, you don't have to do it, but it's really nice when you're using systems to have a sense that you are future-proofed and able to do whatever strategy you want to do. Whether you do it or not is neither here nor there at that point. What you don't want is to be boxed into a corner, not able to do something. Oh, and by the way, because it keeps coming up, and I still can't believe that we're the only publishing management system that do this. But remember that in Consonance, every module that we're looking at here is included in every user account by default. And that's because they're not modules. We write Consonance to be a coherent, cohesive application where everything is related. So it's not like it's not like we've sort of boxed you into a corner and insist that you pay us more money to use the royalties bit or the production bit. Because that sort of thing drives strategy as well. That means that it's your system choice that means you have to draw your user roles, your staff roles. Because if somebody working in production wants to have access to Consonance, then, I don't know, you have to pay for an entire new module just for them. I don't get it. So yes, anyway, so all good. So here we are again looking at the sort of information that can be pulled through from original works into a derived work. We're talking about contribution information and also table of content information. Now, this is really cool because table of contents have been extracted from the actual ebook. I mean, you can totally type them in yourself, but it's very handy once you've got the ebook in hand. You wouldn't have that. Once you've got the ebook on file, to be able to extract the table of contents from it and all of that rich metadata, put it into your marketing texts here, and then put that table of contents information into the derived work. This is why I put this under the speed section today, because you're really able, once you've got the initial work set up, you're really able to start reusing your information in very fruitful ways. Yes, so work derivations, original works, these are all really powerful tools to enable you to save time, do things at speed, but most importantly, not feel like your life force is draining away because you're doing the same thing again and again and again. No. One version of the truth and doing things once. That's the name of the game around here, isn't it? Yes. Right, what's next? Depth parts. Very brief. When I was thinking about derived works, I was also thinking, well, what other kind of accumulations of data are interesting? And there are quite a few. There's things like, even the idea of using a search means that you're accumulating data, you're filtering it and seeing it through particular angles, particular lenses, aren't you? And with these work derivations, you're grouping information in the same way that you kind of group information into a search, or indeed into a batch, which we've looked at quite recently. So a lot of the work that we do, isn't it? It's finding patterns and grouping things together where they needed to be grouped together. But one type of grouping that we haven't spoken about for a while, I don't think, is creating a work that is composed of other products from throughout the system. And the easiest way to think about this is teacher packs. You know, like you can, if you go to an educational suppliers website, you can get the teacher pack, which is 6 copies of an exercise book plus a single copy of the teacher version. And that's like, we call that product parts. And I think we call that product parts because Onyx calls it product parts. I might be wrong. So let's have a quick look at what that looks like in this. And I'm sticking to my big book of big cats, and I've typed the word parts into the filter thing up here. And actually, what am I doing? I'm typing the word parts into my filter thing here. Excuse me. And so it's under format, product parts, and we've got one place where we can change this per product. So here I'm saying, I'll just add a product part actually. Here I'm saying, what's the product part? And it can be any product from without the whole system. And if we look to see, you know, the product that this product contains. So when I say the whole system, you know, I'm talking about, where's my products list? I mean, I would normally do this by going to the search page or something, but you know, you can have myriad different products across myriad different works. And here's all of my cats at large and everything. But any one of these products you can select to build up a separate work that contains one or more of those products. So it's not like it's metadata, it's more like it's like the physical actuality of how many units of this, you know, once it's been printed. Or maybe it's even the same for digital works. Can't quite think that through. So anyway, so let's do cats at large 1000. Let's go to the metadata page. Little kitten. Let's go to product parts. And then we say, yeah, I do want to set product parts, and I'll add a product part, and it'll look something like this. And here's my big book of big cats. Let's get a smaller one actually. Let's get history, cats throughout history. Cats throughout history paperback. So I want to have 12 copies of Cats Throughout History paperback in my work that's called Cats at Large 1000. And then what I want to do is add the teacher version. So I'm going to get, do I have a teacher version? No. Then I'm going to pretend that this, the cat and mouse is the teacher version, and I'm going to have one copy of that, and I'm going to save that. And so that is how I have communicated that the work Cats at Large 1000 is like a composed of other products. So that's quite good as well. And I can't really think on the fly of another example compared to a sort of an educational situation like that. I mean, you could have reading group packs, couldn't you? Like bundles. And you can have multimedia bundles. So one of those products could be an ebook part. So let's look to see if there are any ebooks on the list, because this is all at the product level, you know. Is there going to be I can't think. There might be an ebook. And then you would have to change the appropriate thing here. It might be a WW mixed media kind of a product form there. But again, you know, all I've had to do is select from a drop down the singular record that represents all of the metadata that describes each of these constituent parts. So again, I really like this sort of ability to compose new products, new works from existing data. And that's what I will be talking about in 20 minutes to my lovely meeting attendee, who asked exactly this question. You know, it's great just to have the list of things, but what else can we do with it? So this is an investigation into that, isn't it? I think those are all the things I wanted to mention today, except to say that tomorrow I'm going to Edinburgh, which is going to be great. Going down on the train, and then the following day, bright and early, go to the Society of Young Publishers conference at a venue, Dovecot Studios I think it's called, where they have weavers weaving tapestries as you stand. And I'm so excited to see sort of artisanal craft making at work. I hope people are working on a Saturday. I mean, I don't like to impose more work on poor hard-working artists, but it would be absolutely lovely to see that in action. And of course, fantastic to see quite a few chums who I've seen are going on the list. So that's going to be super. And also to revel in the future of our industry. I'm going to be making some closing remarks at the end of the day. So if you're going, you can look forward to that. And then back on the train for a very, very sunny weekend in glorious northern Scotland. So I hope you're going to have a very lovely weekend as well. If you're going to Edinburgh for the Society of Young Publishers conference, I shall so look forward to seeing you then. I'm going to be taking a few Snowbooks books to swap. There's a matchmaking book swap thing going on. So I'm going to use it as a chance to foist my books on the unsuspecting public. So that'll be exciting too. Lucky people. Right, have a good one. See you next week. Like and subscribe. Bye.